Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode. Not a new week, actually. Because of Hurricane Irma, we have postponed last week's games into today. And then, of course, we'll flow on through week 3 as per usual tomorrow. But today's September 21st. My name's Tom Battinger. I'm joined here by Anatoly. How you doing today?
Pretty good. You know, I'm excited to catch up with some of these games. A lot of interesting games so far in week number 1, and we're going to wrap things up here with week number 2.
Yeah, it's exciting as hell. And, of course, a shout-out to SennHeiser for providing us the audio. And a shout-out to, well, HRX. That's what it's all working towards in the fall split. Players have to go through a whole bunch of hoops and rings. You just have to buy some tickets. hi-rez-expo.com.
It's all about the players trying to get into this hi-rez expo. You know, you got your super regionals and the gauntlet, but also you can get a little bit more towards contributing towards hi-rez expo by going for the Odyssey.
Yeah, of course. The Odyssey is what you guys can do at home. And if you play this weekend, you can kick off the Odyssey with double everything. That's Worshippers, Favor, XP. That's Ares on the right side of the screen and Chalk on the left.
It's an epic battle between two epic gods. I'm not going to lie, Tom. You pinpointed those two gods right there.
Definitely got to mention them because the gods are what the players are playing. Let's take a snapshot of the European squad and see where all the teams line up. Obey Alliance and Team Dignitas tied up there for number 1. We'll see Dig play Energy and see if that shakes him up. Elevate and Valen Squad round up the top 4.
Elevate did a wonderful job in their last performance, actually, finding the 2-0 victory against Energy. What a performance out of them. And today's schedule, if we take a look at that, we'll see them play a little bit later today.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to see Energy and Dig go head-to-head. Rival versus the Papis. Now, North American teams, we're only going to get to see one matchup today, LG versus Space Station Gaming. As far as the Mighty Storm versus E-United is concerned, that match has been postponed due to up to admin discretion, so we'll see that match a little bit later. So just for today, 3 sets, but still a lot of action. So let's dive right on in. Energy versus Team Dignitas. That's going to be one of the more entertaining ones here. I think that Energy in the 5th spot is a surprise to a lot of people. So when we start talking about the matchup, Toli, I mean, is this a 1 seed versus a 5 seed as we're used to knowing it?
It's usually not the case when it's with Energy. When we're talking about Energy, we're always saying like they start off slow in every single split and then they pick things up once they get to land. But now they're going to be against Dignitas. They're already struggling with 1 point, only finding a split against Valen Squad, losing to Elevate. This is not your typical Energy whatsoever. And Dignitas are on fire. They defeated Rival in the first week. They defeated Burrito, which was to be expected. And I don't expect the former summer champions here to go down to Energy at all.
Now, here's the thing for me, Anatoly, is that like the reason I presented that question as I did was because I feel like when we talk about a 5th seed, we have a very a line in our mind of how good that team actually is. But with how talented all of Europe is at the moment, I don't think that that representation of what a 5th seed is actually true. When you look at, you know, teams 1 through 4, they could all be a top European squad. So seeing Energy all the way down to number 5 isn't really indicative of how good or bad they are. But then you bring up their past performances and I sort of wince. I'm like, they did lose to Elevate. That does present a little wonky equation.
But they're going to need to be very careful because this gauntlet is going to be played online. And if Energy continue to struggle online, they might not even get a chance to go to Super Regionals, which means if they're not there, they're not going to get a chance to defend the World Champion title.
Long split before we start talking about Energy not making it. I'm not even ready to start that conversation, let alone finish it. Here versus Dignitas, you mentioned Energy had a little bit of a slow start. Dignitas, though, they win the summer split as far as DreamHack was concerned. After that, though, where do they go from there, Toli? How have they seemed in your eyes so far?
They've just been so consistent here. They haven't made any changes whatsoever. A lot of these other teams have made some changes. Specifically, you know, you look at Obey Alliance and Energy, Maniac juggling there, Dimmy moving back a little bit. Dignitas are just so consistent, and they're so comfortable together. If you ever look at their videos that they post, you just tell the chemistry that they have with one another.
Dignitas absolutely have something special for my money. They look like a team that has been around for a lot longer than just 2 splits coming into this fall split. They are the team to beat, and it's kind of interesting because previously Energy was the squad to beat. Now a little bit of a flip-flop here. Team Dignitas, Variety's proven team in my eyes. Absolutely going to be a big, tough contender. So You're thinking of 2-0 for Team Dignitas.
Absolutely. Whenever we're looking at these two teams, I believe that Cubo Fred is going to be able to out-carry Adapting here.
You know, I also agree with that, but I think that the split down the middle might be more. I don't think Energy loses to. I don't think there's any world where Energy loses to Elevate and then comes out and doesn't pull out all of the stops for this game. I think in the world of Energy, these guys are the emotional players, as we always say. Yeah, no, these guys at least earn a split, if not the win. It'll be tough. Rival versus Papis. This is the squad. This is the matchup that we're starting off with today. We'll head into this one right after we discuss it just a little bit. Rival versus Papis. A little bit different than Energy versus Dig. I think these teams are on two ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. Rival got off to a very slow start, losing to Dignitas, losing to Obey Alliance. Now, granted, these two teams are the most prestigious in Europe at the moment, but Rival are second place from the summer split, and they did a wonderful job that last split, but they couldn't really find things in the first 2 weeks thus far. They need to really pick up the pace, and this could be the confidence booster that they need going in against Papis.
Papis do have a nice win in there. I mean,
true.
They beat Valen Squad last week, which is, I mean, Valen Squad was one of the more confident teams coming out. If you look on paper, you're asking yourself, how did this happen? If you watch the game, you're asking yourself, how did this happen? But, you know, jokes aside, I think the Papis are not a joke any longer. I think that at one point in time, you might have been able to kind of laugh at their expense. But this is a team that's grinding. They're putting in the effort. I say it almost every time I get an opportunity to. Dracomarino and Dheylo, at the very least, they look fantastic. And if we watch the matches where they played against Valen Squadron and actually earned themselves a split, there are still a lane. Even Creed looked really strong. So, I mean, this is a squad. Papis are a real unit, keeping in mind that Rival, they've had some struggles online. That's what people like to say. Aggro got up here and he said, you know what, I don't buy it. I don't think that it's a struggle online. I think it's just, you know, happenstance. Do you think that the Papis' recent success, and combined with the fact that Rival, not exactly known as an online team, is there a possibility for the Papis to split and or win 2 here?
No. Honestly, Papis are good and they've been improving from split to split, but this is the time that Rival are now looking back at their last 2 sets against Obey, against Dignitas, and have made these necessary improvements, and they're not going to hold anything back against Papis. If there's a strategy that they've been working on, they're going to execute it here. They're going to try to climb the standings and get in good position to either qualify for Super Regionals or at least be the final boss of the gauntlet.
Well, I'm certainly excited to see this because, as we said, the Papis steadily improving, and Rival always ready to pull out an oddball strategy. You know me, that's what I want to see. Papis versus Rival, standing by. We've got Taco and special guest commentator John Finch.
Thank you, Tom. Again, I am John, your special.
Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Tom, as well, for introducing us on this one. But yeah, I'm definitely really excited to get going for this. And all around, I think it should be a pretty solid performance. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and more particularly because of the fact that it is going to be the Papis facing off against Rival, and if anything, that is just definitely always a way to really look out for things. And it's really, really exciting, and I am just really looking forward to this. But more importantly, we are having a little bit of technical issues because, as you can tell, Finch's mic doesn't want to work, but we're going to have a short little break with the desk for a second so you guys can say hello again to Tom and Twolly.
Thanks a lot, Taco and John Finch. Now, Tully, let me tell you a secret.
Yeah.
So this Poppy, remember how I was talking about how I really like when they pull out oddball strategies?
Yeah.
I actually unplugged John Finch's mic so we can do picks and bans.
Why not? Let's go ahead and do picks and bans. Rival against Papis. Let's see what kind of oddball strategies both of these teams can run.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, a little bit of extra dose. I'm just excited to actually be back in the swing of things. Rival on the left side with the first pick and the first ban against the Papis. Specifically, what are you thinking about banning here? Because at the end of the day, they're very standard bans. We want to get rid of Scotty. We want to get rid of Terra. We've seen Kamazot's even. But do the Papis change those ideas? Do you want to do something different here?
I expect Papis to be very aggressive, in specifically the duo lane. Their front line here between Dheylo, Dracomarino, and Creed have been playing so well for Papis that they kind of run off of that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some aggressive supports for them. I don't expect Papis to let Artio go through since their second pick. That's more of a first pick kind of strategy, but I wouldn't be surprised if they draft maybe an early Ganesh.
Rival seems like the type of squad that wants to play against Artio to prove they can beat her.
Sure, that could be the case, actually.
She's very beatable, totally.
Yes, if you run Nemesis, iceicebaby does like to run these kinds of jungles to try to blow up the Guardians. And Rival, though, they need to be careful, though, because they're still without a single win in this fall split. Fair. And giving up a god such as Ardio, and then you don't execute against her, now your morale has to be taking a hit there. You know what
I'm thinking, though, as we see Kamazot's the second ban here for the Papis, I'm very interested in seeing, so Rival, if they leave Ardio up, Dracomarino wants to play Ganesh all day, every day, every single game, and as a fan, I want him to play Ganesh. His Ganesh is incredible. If you leave up the Ardio, do the Papis put it in the hands of Creed, who in my opinion is not their number 1, 2, or 3 player? Do you give it to the solo laner and say good luck? We saw what happened with Scary D. It didn't really work out. Putting players on characters just because, not always my game plan.
Well, we're not going to be seeing that, Ardio, since it has been second banned from Papis. Really respecting the fact that potentially Rival could flex that in their solo lane as well. Knowing Deathwalker, he's always putting in the Jing, doing Geb, doing Ares, which I really respect him for that, but executing it very well with not only himself, but it's a team game, team synergy. We saw the early rotations from Callus making his presence felt in that solo lane.
It's going to be the Erlang Shen early and often, as per usual for Rival. Whether we see this in the solo or the jungle, I'm not sure if Rival know yet, which is one of the nice things about this pick. One, it doesn't show your hand. You don't really say, hey, we're going aggressive, we're going for a combo. Erlang Shen can kind of do it all. You don't say, hey, we're giving it to a particular position. And also, you don't have to know that. You can sort of pick your solo lane. Your solo laner's like the counter pick scenario. You can give this to your solo laner, or you can wind up saving it for later.
It's going to be more favorable for Poppy since their second pick. They're holding on to that last pick. So both teams are kind of be looking to flex their options, but the favor will go to Poppies. However, Susano being locked in for Poppies looks to me like it's a target stripping that god away from iceicebaby.
It is, but I love these two selections for the Poppies, as Hou-Yi is the hunter of choice for Rival. Susano and Jing Wei, when I talk a lot about teams identifying and understanding their own strengths and weaknesses, meta be damned, as Raijin is locked in for Team Rival's Wlfy. Raijin, or you know what? Maybe it'll be jungle. I won't speak too soon. But Susano and Jing Wei. Dheylo is one of the harder carries on the Poppies. He plays a strong Susano, and one of the things that makes him strong is his ability to rotate the map efficiently. Give him the Susano. Love it. Warchi, he's the guy that's going to come through in the clutch in the late game. Let him farm up. What's the best hunter to farm, Totally?
Jing Wei. Why not?
I love these selections for the Poppies. They understand themselves. Love it.
Rival, though, have a high execution god list thus far between their Raijin, Hou-Yi, and Erlang Shen, whereas there's a lot of safety between Poppies, especially drafting this Geb this early on means that they can really start focusing out some Guardian bans. I don't necessarily expect Callus to run this Warrior.
Sure. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. And as we head into the second round of bans, I think the Poppies are thinking the same thing. Raijin, though, again, jokes aside, as we see the Fafnir ban thinking the same thing. That's basically Colos's character. Raijin was able to play some jungle in North America and do success. He wound up being successful. Do you reckon that we see Rival play around with this Raijin in different positions?
It could be the case because Raijin has such great clear at level 1 and 2 that you can honestly pair that with almost anything. You can even run Hou-Yi middle and Raijin jungle.
My question, do we see Raijin solo?
That is very risky. He does have an escape. He has a great peel for himself with that ultimate. And if you're going to commit to try to kill him, he'll probably kill you faster than you can kill him. Similar case to if you ever try to gank an Anubis. But knowing Deathwalker, I would never question any god that Rival will have if that's going to go in the solo lane.
I wouldn't have asked that question if it was a different team. Put it that way. Deathwalker, just one of those guys where you always got to be guessing. The Nemesis banned out by the Poppies, keeping in mind that Erlang Shen might be a flex selection. I like that. Also, Xayah recently showed off the, was it Xayah that showed off the solo Nemesis?
I believe it was, actually. He did a lot of damage there. I know Kiki also likes to run a lot of Nemesis.
It was a North American team.
It might have been Kiki, actually.
My mistake. But the solo Nemesis, absolutely somebody that can do something. With the advent of Bluestone, the clear is no longer really a question. And the Nemesis ahead is a Nemesis that you got to be afraid of. So I like the Nemesis ban. Again, keeping in mind Deathwalker likes different things. Nemesis for Rival, absolutely a flex character. The Thoth guy locked in for the Poppies mid laner. And with Ares secured, I think we know what Colossus is going to play.
Or Deathwalker.
So the Ares selection was very specific. I don't think, especially with Kali, who's interesting. There we go. We get our little bit of flair.
Okay.
With the Ares solo. Come on, Tony.
No,
You're a solo
they're not
There's
going to run
a much bigger conversation about that Ares solo, and you know it.
There's not going to be an Ares solo here because the way they executed the Ares solo was trying to get an early level 2 kill and having an Athena taunt secure it.
Exactly.
But this time, there's no Athena. I don't really see Kali or Erlang Shen kind of supporting this Ares in the solo.
Last question. Who's solo? Erlang, Shen, or Kali?
It's got to be the Erlang Shen.
All right, we'll see Kali in the jungle perhaps one more time. Let's say hello to John Finch and Taco.
Thank you, Tom. This time everyone can hear my glorious voice. I am John Youngling Finch, your special guest cast, and I do have with me here Taco. You ready to get into this game, Taco?
I am really excited for this game, especially seeing that Kali selection from iceicebaby, who I'm definitely expecting to be playing that Kali.
Oh, yeah.
One of the assassins that we're not too keen to seeing, but considering how late these matches tend to go, could be tried to be a really strong pick for Rival.
Kali is one of those hard win conditions. Like, it's basically like having a clock on the game. When Kali gets into the late game, it can be very, very difficult to deal with. And we do see Ice taking that Kali there into the jungle role, and Deathwalker taking Erlang into the solo lane.
Yeah, actually opting to start in the solo lane, I think could also catch Creed a little bit off guard, considering that Kalis will be helping out Wlfy with the mid lane clear, although Raijin clears pretty proficiently in mid, so this is really just Rival trying to get as much aggro early as they can.
That's a good part of what makes Raijin so strong.
One of the things that
So
I'm really keeping in mind as well for this pick is that it just seems to really be more of an efficiency factor. Some people can really undermine just how much clear Kali can have at those early levels.
And we see it coming through here too. Look how well they controlled not just the elementals, but the mid harpies, even the pressure there in mid wave. All that's coming down to Team Rival, in large part thanks to Ice and Wlfy. And we see aggression here in the mid lane too. Wlfy playing very aggressive, taking even a tower shot for his trouble.
I'm not sure that that's really worth it whenever you're pushing yourself down to half health, but considering that they do have enough pressure in the mid lane, it's just Kalish trying to put out as many chains as possible onto this Geb.
And it's not just in the mid lane, even those oracles going over here to the side of Team Rival. This early pressure that they've drafted is huge for them, not just considering that they have it, but that they're probably going to be able to take the late game hand over foot.
And Dheylo even trying to soak up a little bit of that farm next to Creed, help him mitigate some of that pressure that Ice has been applying in that solo lane for farming.
And we see that even being applied a little bit to Vote and BK there in the ADC role. He has a real tiny level lead there. But again, when you have pressure on the map and it lets you take those oracles, it can even help in the ADK in the duo lane when it's going even, help get them ahead. So that's how important this pressure is, how it can have impact everywhere else on the map. But I do want to talk a little bit here about Wlfy going into that soul trap there. Why do we see this that tier 2 start coming out for him?
Raijin is one of those mid lane mages right now who can afford to go with the level 2 start for rushing that Book of the Thoth because of how efficient his laning clear is. He has full clear of the way by level 2, so permitting Kalis to just put as much pressure onto this Geb as well. Dracomarino has no other choice but to try and help out MrNazer. That way he doesn't find himself taking way too much poke from Wlfy early on.
Glad you brought up Kalis and Dracomarino here in particular, because the Ares into the Geb seems like a strong matchup for me, just as thinking of how their kits interact. Does Ares have that early advantage with them?
Ares is generally going to have an early advantage over most supports. It depends entirely, though, upon your team's composition surrounding it. Typically, an Ares can also fall behind if the enemy team were to draft a little bit more pressure-oriented at the starting phases for these lanes. But fortunately enough for Rival, Kalis has a little bit more flexibility because Hu Yi, as we're seeing right now, is Votes trying to take Warchi underneath his T1 tower, looking for the kill, but unable to find it.
Fortunately, with that Jing Wei passive, though, Warchi will be able to come back to lane. No big deal, but again, we are seeing just the example of that early pressure. And again, taking that iceicebaby, taking the Kali late game, it's sort of an insurance package almost for Ares early. Because as you said, if Ares doesn't get the early kill, which he's going for, onto Creed, already coming in the ultimate, and Creed is pulled in. Those chains mean there won't be any movement out of him, and he just gets taken down by the big 3-man rotation from Team Rival.
And he was already the mark for iceicebaby. Anytime that the Kali puts you down as a target, that is a full health guarantee should he get the last hit. And for any any assassin on the map, there is one I do not want seeing that first blood bounty go to. It is definitely a Kali.
Kali very well might be the worst assassin to see get that early first blood. They even get a speed buff on that right-hand side for their trouble as well, successfully invading. Even Vote on the left side was being aggressive too, invading. He does have a red buff around him, so I think he was able to successfully take it.
Just a successful steal, and that's one of the benefits of having that ricochet for your early clear early on. There's a lot of places where you can find the bounces for that efficient lane clearing and just the jungle camps. And Dheylo was also poked out of that solo lane role. We actually saw him backing right before Creed was aggressed onto, and as soon as Rival recognized that, they're such a 10-year team by now that they're going to take any little small advantage that they can find and really just extort it to its fullest.
And we really do see here that Warchi was forced back a little bit early because he ends up going into the tier 2 of what's very likely going to be the Devil Gloves. And I know most times those AD carries like to go back, buy the full gloves, and start stacking right away.
That could be the instance here for Vote. Vote could also prioritize boosts, just favoring that mobility as the chase down factor. It will be the Devourer's Gauntlets, so he already has a pretty substantial lead in this duo lane, so he might as well build up his stacks. The sooner that he gets that power spike, the better off he's going to be as far as looking for the objectives, which I'm sure that Rival are going to certainly be aggressing anytime now.
And already, Tucker, we're seeing a 2,000 gold lead for Team Rival coming from their control over the jungle, the first blood obviously going the way of iceicebaby there in the jungle. So this early pressure has been really, really impactful for Team Rival. Not just that they've gotten the objective, but they've really moved into an early lead. Most
of the time when you're looking at a 2,000 plus gold lead, you're typically not paying much mind to it, but when it's this early on in the game, as you mentioned, 5.5 minutes and climbing, that is a pretty large amount to already be falling in a gold disparity too. Not to mention that the experience lead is also starting to climb a little bit more in favor of Rival across the board, and a lot of that we're seeing coming out of the solo lane, partially due to the fact that Creed was just first blooded at a really unfortunate time.
And Team Rival are putting that gold lead onto the map in the form of vision. Look at the solo lane side of the map where they've got those two very aggressive wards. That's why Ice is playing so far forward up there. Not just that he's a Kali who wants to kill you anyway and wants to try and get ahead early, but now they know they have the vision, and that's giving Ice the chance to rotate over here into the team fight that's already happening. Deathwalker ultimate already came out, but Susano so safe, able to blink away.
Deathwalker just trying to see whether or not the Papis want to try and pursue him, but the Papis have learned a little bit more discipline as far as their time in the SPL is concerned. Deathwalker, though, taking full advantage of his lead, just proxying that wave right away, trying to set up Rival yet again for another buff invade.
Still playing aggressive here is Creed over here in this solo lane. In fact, look at how far they are forward up here. They're in between the tier 1 and the tier 2, trying to get proxy farming done, trying to pressure them away from their waves, and using the early gold lead as much as they can. But I want to talk a little bit about Warchi and Vote. That Jing passive coming in so big for him. Warchi's already got the Devil Glows up and only a few stacks behind as Wlfy engages in, but it's Creed who ends up jumping over the top. Big damage out of Wlfy, though, and Callus follows up with the ultimate. That's up the chains coming out, and iceicebaby gets a double kill. That's going to be big for Rival.
That passive reset just completely destroyed the Papis, and now iceicebaby went from 10 HP back to full health, able to take out Dheylo secondary, and that is a big 3-man wipe for the Papis. Rival is probably just so ecstatic right now, knowing that they're going to be securing every single part, just stripping all of that jungle buff farm, all of the global farm, and just continuing that massive goal lead for the early game stages.
Taco, all those kills went to iceicebaby in that fight. That's a disaster for the Papis. Him being able to get all that farm. He's 4-0-0. Warchi as well getting pressured out here on that right-hand side. But the combination from Wlfy in that team fight being able to put in so much damage as Warchi's ultimate's forced out just to try and get to safety, of Callus being able to pull everyone back in once beats were off cooldown. It was a huge team fight for Team Rival. And now that gold lead that was just 2,000 like 2 minutes ago is all the way up at 4,000. We're only 8 minutes into the game.
And that's just one of those circumstances where Papis tried to have a very strong initiation factor, looking to defend their own jungle buffs, but the ultimate from Draco was great. The Cataclysm, whenever it hits that many people, you kind of expect it to go in your team's favor. It was a wonderful Typhoon attempt from Dheylo. Unfortunately, the rest of the damage follow-up just isn't there for the Papis this early on, unlike Rival. And now iceicebaby is just getting even more mobility, and he has the Warrior Tabi online. I wouldn't be surprised if he's saving up his gold to look for a potential Heartseeker on this Kali.
Yeah, Heartseeker very potent on these assassins, especially with that passive proc and giving some extra damage when you go in. seeing Deathwalker over here just trying to give Creed a hard time in that solo lane. Some of that vision we were talking about for him on the right-hand side has started to fall off just a little bit, but still trying to exert their control on this side, even giving MrNazer just a hard time, just trying to do their back harpies up there.
And it looks as though iceicebaby doesn't want to waste any time, actually just going straight for the Hasten Katana, which is always a really strong acquisition, especially for a god like Kali, similar to Bakasura, where she just wants to stay on you. She just wants to keep her auto attacks going, especially if she drops her incense on the ground. It's only going to add to that power boost from her.
That's right. Hasten Fatalis, of course, no longer here in the game. That Fatalis effect, though, we saw disseminated down to several other items. The Hasten Katana, one of them that's melee only, so it really works well for these assassins in-handers, getting that haste granted to them so that they're able to go in and not have to worry about that auto attack penalty anymore. Kali sticking to you, that's a nightmare. Especially
considering that iceicebaby has been sticking it to the Poppies the entire game already. He is the entire board for this matchup, and it looks as though the Poppies trying to see if they can get away with an early Gold Fury. Instead, they're going to look for the initiation onto Kalis and Wlfy.
Dracomarino blinking in and trying to get the ultimate off, but it's Wlfy who's up into the air and trying to return damage. Dracomarino underneath the ultimate from VoteMBK, and Warchi, who's left into the back line, now going to have to try and fight out Wlfy. He actually ends up getting the kill. VoteMBK looking for the trade.
And Vote's just trying to find that last in hand, won't be able to, but the ricochet is good. Cleaning up Warchi, making sure that that kill doesn't go unreturned onto Wlfy.
And Poppy start up this engagement over here at the Gold Fury because there was a two-man rotation over to the solo lane side of the map. So I imagine Creed's like, guys, there's two people in my lane, get the Gold Fury. But Team Rival are there to stop them from getting it. It ends up being a one-for-one trade as iceicebaby takes a good bit of poke. Good stun back from MrNazer to force out the ultimate, trying to get a kill to get the heal out. Knocked up is iceicebaby, but the stun was good, but Dheylo was better.
And it just looks as though iceicebaby bit off a little bit more than he could chew, trying to zone out the Poppies from their own red buff. I like the mindset behind it. You want to make sure that your opposition isn't able to secure the one buff that they have been able to actually lock down for themselves. But MrNazer not only able to assist Dheylo in finding the kill, but gets his own red buff as well.
And the 4-0-1 iceicebaby, at least at the time, had to have been a very valuable kill for the Poppies. Now, of course, Iceice 4-1-1 as the Poppies do secure those oracles, establish some vision over there. That way, they can continue to look for this Gold Fury if Team Rival continues to make Creed and that solo lane side their main focus.
And of course, the Poppies are just trying to do the best that they can in order to make up for this golden experience deficit. It's really uncommon for teams to let Akali get this far ahead so early on, but once she starts going, it can be really difficult to stop her. So Dheylo finding that kill onto iceicebaby might have actually gone super heavily in the Poppies' favor, just because it buys them a little bit of time to kind of just refresh and reset the pacing of this match.
5-2 now are the kills in favor of Team Rival. Still about a 5,000 or so gold lead in favor of Team Rival. Starting up the Portal Demon, though, is Rival, just to get a bit of a commitment out of Dheylo. The pin does come out, and Wlfy drops in with the damage as well. His ultimate is enough to secure the kill, but immediately gets returned by Creed. MrNazer sends his ultimate into Deathwalker and brings him very low, trying to wait for that heal to get up, but not in time. Dracomarino gets that return kill, 2-for-1.
But Kalis, he's looking to engage right now. He's got iceicebaby on the backside, ready to follow up. The Geb shield is so strong, though, but VoteMBK's stuns might be a little bit stronger. No, it's actually going to be Creed cleaning him up with the bludgeon.
MrNazer catching Vote, trying to rotate into that fight. Makes it pay with half his health bar. Also going in and cleaning up iceicebaby. It's a 1-for-4 here in favor of the Poppies. Things have flipped entirely on their head based on that fight there in the mid lane.
And whether or not they'll be able to secure this Gold Fury will really be the telling tale of the Poppies turning this match around. Kalis trying to just apply as much damage as possible, but he's going to be unsuccessful in that defense. It's going to be the Poppies locking down the very first Gold Fury of the match.
That fight in mid lane was so important there for the Poppies. In particular, VoteMBK was coming in, a lot of low health bars, definitely had a chance to turn that team fight, but when he basically has to pay 60% of his health bar just to get into the team fight, there's no way for him to be a big part of it. And that's where most of their lead was, like VoteMBK in particular, iceicebaby. When they get taken out early in that engagement, it's very, very difficult for Rival to end up winning it. It turns in Poppy's favor, and they clean up the Gold Fury. Now the kills are even up 6-6.
A little overconfidence from Rival, I would say, to take up a fight that close to the T1 tower line of the Papis.
Yeah.
Granted, nobody was diving the tower, but even being that far up completely exposes you when you're trying to look for the escape route, and that's exactly what happened to Deathwalker. He was trying to get away, had his ultimate, and had it procced. That could have potentially been Rival buying themselves a little bit more time, or at least preventing the Papis from going straight for that Gold Fury. Instead, VoteMBK rotates in, and it was a 1-by-1. Everybody from Rival trying to follow up with just a little bit of damage. Unfortunately, the Papis have extended the game long enough, and it's actually MrNazer finding a kill onto Wlfy in the mid lane.
Yeah, they were going to fight there over those left side Harpies, or duo side Harpies rather, and MrNazer ends up getting a big clean on the kill on the Wlfy. And MrNazer is a good one to talk about here now. 2-0-5, has that Spirit Desolation finished off. He's a big part of what's been going well for Papis here, especially after the rough start for their solo lane side of the map. So MrNazer's been doing a great job here. Where do you think he's going to be going next in this build order here, Taco? Because he's already got that Spirit Desolation online.
Well, here's the interesting part, is that the mid laners in general have gone for two very different builds. Wlfy is going for that Hide of the Urchin second item rush, and with MrNazer prioritizing the Spirit Desolation, he gets a little bit more of a power spike boost. Meanwhile, Wlfy is just going to be slightly behind, opting to build into that Urchin. He's already gotten 3 deaths, and typically people are looking at it as, oh, defense isn't actually a half bad option here, but you don't really want to fall behind either and be building into a Hide of the Urchin. That's more of those win more items, in my personal opinion, when it comes to a Hide of the Urchin second item for the mid laner.
And it's the pin in particular that he's foregoing to go with that Hide of the Urchin. So important in that mage build, especially if they end up looking to try and blow up, say, Dracomarino. Or even if you do catch him out, that pin is just important to help you get a little bit closer to killing off your target in one rotation of skills. Now, Warchi's the one who's winning the trade over here in the left hand, as Vote is forced to back off.
And that's unfortunate for Vote because he's trying to play it out. Warchi did clear the wave, so it will allow for Vote to have a little bit of time to maybe look for some health regen off of those creeps. But Warchi, of course, recognizing that the enemy hunter hasn't backed yet, looking to apply a little bit of poke onto that tower and potentially the 1v1 onto Vote.
Wow, Papis have really slowed down the pace of this game, Taco. It felt like the game was off the rails for a while. They're in favor of Team Rival, but Papis now establishing some vision over here on the right side, trying to make sure that this Portal Demon can't be snuck away from them since the Gold Fury is still 1 minute and 45 away from coming up. This is where, if something's going to come up on the map to try and give them an advantage, it'll happen. Right now, iceice trying to get the ward vision on that side, but the Papis have done a great job of slowing everything down.
And that's exactly what they needed to do, especially when Rival are opting for this Ares composition. Ares is notorious for always having so much early game presence if he's able to get ahead with his team. And considering that, sure, Countless hasn't found any kills himself, but he has 5 out of Rival's 6 kills for the assist. And that is a really important factor as well, especially when he's probably going to be looking into building what I'd imagine to be a Shogun's Kasari just to provide a little bit more auto attack speed to iceice on this Kali. Deathwalker even gets a little benefit, as well as VoteMBK. And it's just important all around to stack up those aura items on an Ares, because you also get that additional magical boost as far as your power is concerned from his passive.
Kaos has been involved in a lot of fights, as has MrNazer and Dracomarino. Look at them both with 100% kill participation, at least as far as Papis are concerned on that side so far. Dheylo, though, lurking here in the wings, trying to see if they can bait VoteMBK into an engagement. But Warchi goes in. Vote commits the ultimate, as does Warchi, but he's up into the air. Vote's back safely underneath his tower. Nothing more going to come of it. They trade those ults 1 for 1.
Warchi not looking to take too much tower
damage. But Dheylo rotating
yet.
back in. He blinks over the side of the wall, and now they're trying to go in and Vote underneath the wall, but he backs off to safety. He's okay, but Dheylo was hanging around.
And Vote already had his jump back up and ready to go, and that's where everything kind of fell apart for Dheylo. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd also kind of been anticipating that blink ultimate from Dheylo, suspecting that something is up. Typically when an enemy ADC is playing that aggressive and you don't see the enemy jungler on the map, you can kind of expect they're looking for the tower dive.
This was a good time, though, to put pressure on that dual lane side of the map, since the Gold Fury was immediately respawning. They successfully forced Vote to back, but it doesn't look like the Papis are looking to try and go for it right away afterwards. So even though they had a momentary, maybe man advantage, they use it just to establish the control of that area. It's all Papis really on that side as far as ward control is concerned. It looks like 5 on that dual lane side.
And I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier with Dracomarino on the get pick versus the areas of Kalis. And one one of the two things is that this could really go either way in this matchup, although I would probably favor the Geb as the game progresses, simply because that shield does provide the cleanse for those area chains, that cripple no longer being applied if Draco's able to find the successful cleanse of it. On top of that, his Cataclysm can also prevent Kalis from pulling him in, so it'll mostly be up to Kalis to just try and find Draco in an awkward positioning on the map to where it's him being isolated instead of Cataclysming into the entirety of Rival.
Geb Shield's so nasty in the late game, providing so much extra health for like MrNazer or Warchi in particular if they were to get dived on by iceicebaby on Kali, who's looking for that reset. It's so important for her kit when she's able to go in and get that kill off. So that could definitely throw a wrench in the plans of iceicebaby here. Team Rival trying to do what they can here on the left side to get a little bit more vision control. Just going to have to back off. Not Kree, but Deathwalker, rather, on that right-hand side, hanging out near the Portal Demon, just making sure nothing's happening over there on that side. But hey, it looks like Wlfy did at least finish his hide of the Urchin. So.
It's one of those things, he just needs to try and prioritize the stacks now more than anything else to really get the full benefits out of this item. The more stacks you build up, the more protections that you get. Plus, having that additional 250 health will also attribute pretty heavily to him because he won't get bursted down as easily from Dheylo or MrNazer.
And we do also see, just talking about the build here, Creed even choosing to go with that Swift Wing. A lot less of the teleports that we're seeing from those solo laners. What's that about, Taka?
The Swift Wing is an item where it's kind of 50-50 whichever direction the solo laners really feel like taking it. It can be an item that can get you back to the lane or even rotating to team fights faster. And it's that I would look at it more as an item trying to set you up for the team fight as opposed to getting you back into the lane. Because you're going to be losing out on finishing an item. Hold that thought though, as Vote's getting dove on again by Dheylo and Warchi, but he's up in the air. He's able to dodge out the ultimate from Dheylo, actually finding the kill, but Warchi with the cleanup.
So important for Vote to be able to go in and make that a one-for-one trade. That way he doesn't just fall susceptible to that gank and leave the Gold Fury open. We saw Vote earlier go up to the Gold Fury and just kind of pull it, just to gauge the response, I believe, from the Papis. If no one had come, he'd have taken it with that Devo gloves, giving him lifesteal. But what he did learn was that they did have vision control on that side of the map. So important that he made one-for-one trade and not give up what could have potentially been a free Gold Fury.
And now Team Rival looking to just pressure out the mid lane tower. Draco trying to get there in time to assist MrNazer on the backside, but Creed is also rotated over. Deathwalker now just trying to get out of the tower line before he gets pinned down underneath it.
MrNazer has been nasty with those long-range stuns coming out from Thoth that he's piling very strong when they go through those glyphs, extending the range. Feels like everything in his kit just gets better when you put it through those glyphs. Warchi, though, left alone on the left-hand side, goes ahead and grabs those oracles, uncontestable vision now that they have on top of that Gold Fury.
And that's only going to benefit the Papis, considering that Rival, if anything, we're probably going to be looking for a little bit more sneaky of a Gold Fury because they want to probably just bait the Papis into a fighting position that would favor out Rival. And so you can also see that the ADCs have opted for two different builds as well. Warchi going the more traditional crit route, especially considering that Jing has that passive built into her kit with her second ability where she gets that boosted crit chance. So having the Poison Star early on, not only will it be slowing anybody that she gets the crit off onto, but it came into play a little bit during that last fight between Vote, Warchi, and Dheylo. Even though Warchi's purification beads were forced out, Vote still felt the wrath of that Poison Star as it crit him, and one crit's all it takes, really, to put you down to a position where you're going to probably die.
Now, when you see there's a Geb on the other team, Taco, does that affect the way that you end up trying to build as an AD carry? Could that be on Vote's mind when he's going for that like kin size and getting the pin build and attack speed?
It's kind of just what he's forced into. If he doesn't want to... Crit isn't as effective against the Geb shields as what a chin size is going to be. You need a way to shred through that health. Speaking of which, they're trying to shred through Warchi right now, but his ultimate is actually going to get him into safety. Geb there just to make sure. But all around, really strong play from Warchi because if there's one guy that can make it back in time for a Gold Fury fight, it's definitely a Jing.
Good job bringing up that passive there, too, because it was very, very close for Warchi being able to get out of there, but he'll be able to rotate back in, no problem. But Team Rival decide to immediately go for it anyway. MrNazer already commits the ultimate, but it was off the mark. That Gold Fury does go down in favor of Team Rival, even getting the ultimate out of Dheylo as well. So it's 2-for-1 ultimates committed, and Rival get the Gold Fury.
Also had the style play from Kalis, throwing out those flames just to ensure that he didn't get knocked up from Dheylo's ultimate. And now it's the Portal Demon, next line of sight for Team Rival. Once they get one objective, there's no slowing down. Nobody from the Papis is even aware of this happening. Wlfy going into the taiko drum just to be certain, but Warchi was able to split push out a T1 tower. Global objective probably still a little bit more in favor right now.
They didn't have to worry about MrNazer's ultimate just now. I mean, it was committed to try and stop the Gold Fury. It was not able to do that, so they go over to the Portal Demon and say, well, what's their big mage ultimate that can contest with what Wlfy's putting out? They don't have one right now. They go and take the Fire Giant, not the Fire Giant, but the Portal Demon and the Gold Fury. Now they've extended their gold lead back up to about 2.5k, despite being one down in the kills here 24 minutes into the match.
Yeah, MrNazer wanted to steal that Gold Fury with his final judgment, but it was just a little bit out of range still. Yeah. Nobody from the Papis felt comfortable in looking to aggress on that Gold Fury pit, even though they've got the hold that thought. It's going to be Creed trying to get away from iceicebaby, but instead Dheylo pulling both of them in.
Dheylo doing a good job controlling iceicebaby in that team fight, grouping them up for the bludgeon coming out from Creed. It was so much damage. VodenBK trying to catch out MrNazer over here. Those ricochets were very close to light him up there in the middle lane, but able to avoid it is Nazer as Warchi takes those oracles on the dual lane side.
See, if that triple ricochet connects, though, that, you know, he's just calling it as calculated.
Yeah.
That's what every hunter has to do. And again, Vote just trying to spam these ones, really wanting that stun onto MrNazer for the poke. And MrNazer had the same mindset behind him. But with both the objectives being down for Rival, if anything, they're just going to start grouping up and trying to find the picks once more onto the Papis so that they can find that final boss objective of the Fire Giant.
And that's what we saw from Ice on the right-hand side is Deathwalker's under a little bit of pressure here from Creed, just trying to see was Ice if he could catch Creed out, maybe get a quick kill there and try and get him the numbers advantage. Team Rival do take that tier 1 tower in the mid lane, and also there's aggression over here on the right-hand side from the Papis. It's Deathwalker trying to go in. He does get that horrific emblem off, so all 3 members are slowed. Sprint does come out in response, though, and that gets him out as there were 4 members from Rival who were rotating in.
This is already a huge win for Rival because that burned out one of the shells from the Papis as well as the Sprint. Those are 2 very defensive or offensive actives, and without those relics being available, Rival are all in favor for this team fight.
And Rival are looking to try and use their lead here to just force down this tier 1 tower on the right-hand side, but immediately going in on Vote, and Dracomarino gets the Cataclysm off, forces the shell immediately. Now it's Callus who's in the air with his ultimate. Lots of damage coming in from Wlfy, and it was Warchi up in the top, going over the set of MrNazer for the kill onto iceicebaby. Also, VodenBK ends up dropping, and this fight's going heavily in favor of the Papis so far.
And it's going to be MrNazer finding Wlfy on the backside. Callus, 10 HP, not able to get away either. MrNazer with the double kill, the lone survivor. Deathwalker actually just having it back, and this looks like a free Fire Giant for the Papis. A team fight that looked like it was going to go in Rival's favor, just completely swept around from that Cataclysm Typhoon combination from Dheylo and Draco.
That team fight was so important there for the Papis, being able to win it so handily. They lose nobody in that exchange. Now it's 4 for 1. Now they have the Fire Giant around their waist. Already took that tier 1 tower on left-hand side, but there's still plenty of money left to be farmed from those banks that are the towers that are still up. And the tier 1 tower in right doesn't even fall. So Rival don't even actually get the tower. They lose the fight hand over foot.
Gotta give credit to the Papis on that one in comparison to Rival. Their target focus in these team fights has been so much more impactful. It seems as though the Papis is actually looking to burst down 1 member at a time, but Rival just seemed a little bit more disjointed. VodenBK on the backside trying to aggress onto Creed and Warchi by himself and didn't really have any sort of backup potential. Wlfy forced out early because trying to avoid that Cataclysm, and it's just Rival were able to find the early objectives with the Gold Fury and the Portal Demon Siege right away. They caught Poppy sleeping, but the complete 180 turnaround, you just don't really know what to expect from the Papis.
And take a look at the player damage. I mean, that kind of tells you the story of the game by itself. MrNazer's at 14,000 player damage, and Wlfy's at 6,000 player damage. That's the impact, the difference in these team fights that the mages, our mid laners, have been able to have so far. MrNazer going almost or just entirely damaged here so far is wrecking through these team fights, especially when Dracomarino goes in with the Cataclysm, the knockup, and then setting him up for him to come in.
And now a full Fire Giant Papis with a very strong mid to late game composition. They're online. Warchi is ready to go. He's just focused on this tower and looking to shred anybody who tries to stand in front of it. Wlfy getting out a nice little bit of poke onto Warchi, but Papis are actually just going to fall back to the Gold Fury, rather look for the fight there.
That is what it looks like here. Poppy's trying to bait in Team Rival, and they do so successfully. Creed goes in, trying to get a few cooldowns off of Callus, who just kind of backs off, and now that Gold Fury's looking all but free in favor of Poppies, and they got that tier 1 in mid.
Rival found what they were looking for. They wanted to see if they could find a potential pick off of any trailing members from the Poppies. Warchi immediately recognizing that he was slightly out of position from that Erlang pin, just ults away to safety. He knows that he can rely on Draco if he needs any sort of peel from the rest of his team. And again, Portal Demon just falling towards the Poppies. I do want to see them start looking to siege these remaining T2 towers.
Poppies now with about a 2,000 gold lead. So now the gold lead finally in their favor to go along with the kill lead, which is pretty handily in their favor at 12-7 here, 29 minutes into the game. But take a look at iceicebaby here, Taco. Remember, like, what, 8 minutes in the game, we were freaking out that he was 4-0-0? Now he's 4-3-2. What's happening with iceicebaby?
He just hasn't been able to have as much of an impact due to the Poppies the way that they prioritize the target calls in the team fights has just been all the difference in these fights. And again, Poppy's just looking to siege this T2 tower line. Draco's already in and forced into the Cataclysm. Typhoon knocking everybody up from Rival.
Wlfy immediately responding by going up into the ultimate and trying to put in damage, but it's Warchi in the backline who's in a lot of trouble. Ice heard us talking about him, and now he's trying to get a kill, but Creed is the one catching him out. Warchi just a little bit too safe and able to get away. Those mystical male ticks were ticking him down, and Creed ends up picking up the first kill of the fight.
And it's going to be already a 4v5 underneath this T2 tower. Can't see Rival trying to defend it for much longer, knowing that 2 of their members are having a back to base. And sure enough, the Poppies, again, coming out on top in a team fight. And I think that it's just all over been a very sound gameplay from the Poppies.
And that looked like the dream initiation for them. It was the big ultimate coming out from Wlfy on the top of that team fight that was going through everybody, but it just wasn't much damage coming out. Shells being used, shield coming out from Dracomarino as well, just kept the carries alive. Warchi was very low, but able to escape in the backline, and Creed haunts down iceicebaby. So they take the tier 2 in right, tier 2 in mid, and now they're assaulting tier 2 in the duo lane side as well.
But they're trying to make this siege without the Fire Giant being available for them. So Rival, recognizing that FG buff has worn off, is trying to look for the aggression again, but Kala's already getting burst down by everybody from the Poppies.
Kala's getting caught out there immediately. It's such a detriment here for Team Rival, but it's Vod who's dropping the ultimate on top of the team fight and catching Creed in a lot of trouble. He manages to get out, and tier 2 falls in favor of Poppies.
And now Poppy's just trying to get out as fast as possible, really wanting to look for that Fire Giant since it is going to be up and running in just a few seconds here. So Team Rival, again, they just seem to be struggling. And this just goes to show that there is so much competition right now in Europe. I think anybody looking at this game would have just immediately blown it off and been like, Rival 2-0 this easy. But the Poppies have made substantial improvements since their time spent in the SPL.
Everyone on Poppies is playing well, but in particular, MrNazer is having a big impact for them, sitting at 5-0-8, able to help catch out Callus there, sort of just at the front of the tier 2 tower, and he almost immediately gets blown up, and everyone else from Team Rival has to fall back when that happens, and they take that tier 2 tower. Now it's the Poppies aggressing over here on the right-hand side, already have that Fire Giant below half health from the damage from MrNazer and Warchi, and then Dracomarino and Dheylo establishing a perfect front line. That Fire Giant goes down uncontested, but big damage from Wlfy takes down Warchi before the fight really even got started. Now it's Deathwalker trying to go back and catch out Dheylo, who's also very low. Wlfy gets Dheylo. It's 2-for-0 in favor of the Poppies.
But Vote is able to go down as well from Creed. That's a massive cleanup kill for the Poppies. Kala's trying to reinitiate, but Creed's going to use his ultimate as well to get away. Kala's still looking to escape in the final judge, and MrNazer just off the mark. Wlfy trying to escape with 1 HP, won't be able to. The lash out is good from Creed.
iceicebaby, though, was lurking in the backline. He jumps in on top of MrNazer trying to get the kill out, but so strong is his front line. He uses the dash to get away. The shield from Geb keeps him alive, and iceicebaby has to turn tail. Creed picks up that kill.
But MrNazer was left all alone. Unfortunately for Kalas, his chains were still on cooldown. Now Deathwalker is the other member trying to escape, but the Phoenix, I'm not certain that Papis have enough damage to secure this Phoenix.
Yeah, it is a lot harder without Warchi, their AD carry. That Jing Wei passive is strong for helping you get back to lane, but they're all the way on the other side of the map. Deathwalker and Callus both here to contest this. Papis recognize it and go ahead and start backing off. But what happened? That team, I look, it was going to go so in favor of Team Rival at the beginning, but really it's Papis who end up winning.
Well, it was actually still pretty in favor for Rival. Warchi falling to Wlfy's ultimate just means that the Papis are going to have to be way more careful trying to siege these Phoenixes. Warchi not having those power buffs or the health regen that Fire Giant can provide is a pretty difficult scenario to be in as a hunter, especially when you're so easily aggressed on by that draft from Rival.
At the very least, Warchi is able to pick up the Gold Fury, so that's a little bit more gold in the pocket of Team Papis. Not sure they really need it, though. Most of them are getting close to being 6 slotted here at this point, while MrNazer and Dracomarino are working on finishing out just a couple more items down there. But you can always get more pots, you know, get the tier 2 of your relics, that sort of thing. They want to go ahead and group because all 3 Phoenixes are exposed for Team Rival. No more tier 2 towers left up on the map.
I gotta say though, for Rival, Wlfy only has 2 stacks in that Hide of the Urchin. It's an item that he invested 2350 gold into early on. He rushed its second item, and he just has not seen the benefits from stacking this Urchin, and that's just one of the risks involved with building this second. Sure, you get a little bit of defensiveness, but is it really worth it considering how much damage output he's potentially missing out on that he could have found had he just gone for a more standard mage build?
He's tied for the second most deaths in the game with iceicebaby, so it's not as if it's prevented him from dying. I know he is very immobile when he's up into that ultimate, so maybe worried about being a bit of a sitting duck when he's up there, but still, things not quite going the way that Wlfy was looking for here in this match so far. Meanwhile, his lane opponent, MrNazer, sitting at 5-0-10, having such a huge impact here in this game, and the time spent dead up here, that's no surprise. Seeing Kali and Raijin up there at the top. iceicebaby and Wlfy are having a hard time being a part of these fights late in the game.
All that the Papis want to do right now is protect MrNazer as much as possible. He has been the deciding factor solely for which direction the team fights are headed. Kala's already just trying to be a nuisance onto the Papis, but Chain's not really dealing too much damage just yet, unable to really stack it onto anybody meaningful, just hitting the tanks mostly.
Already getting some poke off here onto the Phoenix are the Papis. Now looks like when they want to try and push in, MrNazer in the back just charging up that ultimate, but it's Creed who jumps in with the rally here. Callus has 2 with the chains, actually pulls them back into a bunch of damage there, but not going to get any kills out of it. Creed moves further forward, and Dheylo takes down iceicebaby. Wlfy, though, is raining in some damage, despite what we said, brings Creed very low, and they defend that Phoenix.
iceicebaby was just deleted before he can even pop his ultimate. That is a more astounding factor. Dheylo just shredded his health alongside of MrNazer. Unfortunately for the Papis, just poked out a little bit too low. They're going to have to wait until the next Fire Giant siege and hope that Wlfy isn't able to do the same thing as last time with eliminating Warchi as soon as they secure it. And again, Wlfy is still doing a large amount of damage. I just can't imagine what it would be like if he'd opted for a little bit more offensiveness like MrNazer had done, because his Taiko drums was able to kill Warchi like immediately. And I just really feel as though another damage item would only contribute to that as far as eliminating the rest of the Papis.
We're only 15 seconds here from the Fire Giant coming back up here one more time, and Team Rival are still pretty close to their base. They might not be looking to contest this one, instead looking to defend on their Phoenixes. Do you think that's the right call?
Even for Rival, yes, they've already held off on the left-hand Phoenix Siege. Granted, 2 members from the Papis were missing that Fire Giant buff, but it's still better off being defended on the Phoenix. They have 3k health. You have more than enough ample opportunity to try and defend there, and with the chaos that can happen underneath those Phoenixes for the enemy team, it could be very easy for iceicebaby to work his way around the backside and finally find a kill onto MrNazer.
Right now, Team Rival have such a strong base defense team. Vote with his big AoE ultimate. Wlfy as well, riding that Raijin ultimate, and then Callus able to sort of reinitiate like we saw in that last fight and pull people back into the Phoenix so that they're taking lots of damage. Going to be difficult for Papis to push in and make this happen, but they are backing up, regrouping, stacking up on wards so that they'll have plenty of vision here on this map. All of them do have that Fire Giant stacked up on them, even the red buff on Warchi to accent already the tons of damage he's putting out with that crit build.
Patience is a virtue, and right now patience is key for Rival. They can't be too eager to start off the initiating factors. They really need to let Papis aggress into them, and granted, the Papis have been doing this pretty much the entire game, which is a little bit, it can be either way for the Papis. It all depends on how many Draco is able to catch in that Cataclysm, but the counter engage from Rival is what we're really keeping an eye out for. Kalis has to grab at least 2 or 3 members. I love what he did in that last team fight. He held his ultimate until Creed had expended that from his, and without Creed having that CC immunity off of his ultimate, it made it all too easy for Rival to turn that fight around.
Duo lane side Phoenix looks to be the call, as Dheylo also pushes in minions in the mid lane as well to try and split the focus of Team Rival as they group in to try and push on this Phoenix. Right now, it's going to be coming down very largely to Dracomarino. His initiations this game have been amazing. Going in, getting the Cataclysm, as you said, off on several members, forcing actives and relics out early. That way his team can respond with lots of damage. Still, Dheylo hanging out. He's actually pulled iceicebaby away from the team fight. That way it'll be a 4v4 over there without having to worry about the big blow-up potential from the late game call.
This is what Dheylo needs to be doing. He needs to be preventing iceicebaby from working into the Poppy's backside. MrNazer charging up that final judgment, looking to release, deletes Wlfy entirely.
That's so important for them. MrNazer takes Wlfy out of the fight immediately, even though Wlfy did put down his ultimate and get down tons of damage. But now the Fire Giant regeneration is going to be huge for the Poppies, regening up a bunch of that damage, and they have the 5v4 numbers advantage. Creed goes in and Kalis commits the ultimate, pulling in Dracomarino. Dracomarino has to shield himself, and he takes a lot of damage from VotingBK's ultimate, who's still down, but Warchi still sitting on his. iceicebaby in the backline trying to take down Creed with his ultimate, and he's able to, but MrNazer gets the return kill. Now it's a 4v3 as Warchi has to back out.
It just doesn't even matter, though. Poppies are still trying to find this left-hand Phoenix. Rival have done an excellent job of holding this one off.
They
Draco
really have.
eating that ricochet from a vote. Just so much. It's actually insane how much damage MrNazer just dropped on top of Wlfy.
Really, he did delete him. I think that was the only thing that had hit him in that fight, but it was so much damage, immediately taking Wlfy out of that team fight. At least Wlfy got to have his biggest impact before it happened. Dheylo, though, blinking in, trying to get some damage onto Vote, but it's Dheylo who takes half his health bar, even has to give up his beads in exchange, but the Poppies do successfully take that left side Phoenix defense, thanks in large part to the Fire Giant.
And Wlfy just trying to see if he could get there in time to look for some cleanup kills, but unfortunately the Poppies have already backed off, and that is exactly what the Poppies needed to do. They got what they wanted. They finally managed to secure that left-hand Phoenix, and again, that's just all credits to MrNazer, just dropping that bomb on top of Wlfy.
MrNazer is the problem for Team Rival here right now. iceicebaby's specialty is Cowley's rather, is getting into the back line and taking out one of the carries, taking out one of the squishies. Very likely MrNazer needs to be that focus, but Dracomarino so good on this Geb at keeping his carries alive with the shield. Creed as well has been doing a good job clearing and peeling for his backline as well, so the job is so difficult for iceicebaby, as Rival do at least take the Portal Demon, giving them a way to come back in and back and try and make some defense, but more importantly, just trying to take that objective off the map for Poppies.
That Portal Demon, though, won't be sticking around for too long, and should the Poppies try to draw things out for that Fire Giant secure, which, again, I can't really see Rival trying to contest. One of the main things about the Poppies in that Phoenix Siege and why they were so persistent on securing that left-hand Phoenix is because it's the Phoenix furthest from the Fire Giant pit. Now that it's already down, as long as they keep that wave moderately pushed, it'll give them a lot of flexibility for whether or not they want to siege the mid lane or the right-hand Phoenix that's still standing for Rival.
And we saw Dheylo, when they go in for that Phoenix Siege, making sure to split push. That's going to be even more effective when now there's Fire Giants in one of the lanes as well. So Dheylo going to push in one lane, the rest of the team groups in the other, and forces that push as the Fire Giant is spawning. And it looks like Team Rival actually do want to group and try and contest it this time. So they've chosen to take the fight on the objective.
Teams can kind of fall into a little bit more of a passive state of mind when the enemy isn't trying to contest initially off the Fire Giant. So there is some slight opportunity for Rival to work their way into that Fire Giant pit while the Poppies are just, kind of a little bit AFK. Just they think that buff is theirs, which it has been this entire game, but still a little bit of bite back from Rival.
iCeicebaby was trying to loop around for a while there, but ends up giving up on it. Actually backs here. There's no way for Papis to recognize that, though, so they think that everyone is still here. They go ahead and start up the Fire Giant, which is very quickly being taken down to half health. Looks like they're just going to see if Dazer can maybe go in and force him to back off it without making any kind of hard commit. He does get pulled in, and immediately Dheylo commits the ultimate. But MrNazer dropping in the damage from his ult, and that does a lot to take down Deathwalker, who's still walking, but is low.
Kalisz, though, able to find the ultimate onto Creed yet again, but instead it's the Papis. They just want to go in. Sprint has been popped. iceicebaby trapped in between a rock and a hard place as the entirety of the Papis tries to collapse on him. Dheylo able to follow him over the wall, but it might not be the place that he wanted to go.
One more time, MrNazer coming up big with that stun. iceicebaby very likely could have returned that as Kalisz returns onto Warchi. Now it's Rival with the 5v4 numbers advantage, but they're very low. They recognize that stopping them from getting that Fire Giant was big, and they go ahead and back off.
The distraction play from Rival was beautiful there. iceicebaby just completely pulled the attention of everybody from the Papis. Meanwhile, Warchi's still trying to go in, and it was only Draco looking to aid him there. So, of course, he's going to be the victim as standing as a frontline Jing Wei.
And that fight was just too bad because Dheylo, when they force iceicebaby to jump over the wall, Dheylo immediately blinks afterwards to try and clean up the low collie, but using the ultimate so that she can't be killed during its duration, and then turning to burn him, which I think would have been successful if MrNazer wasn't just on point with his stuns all game, stuns over the wall with that glyph actually in the geometry of the map, saving Dheylo's life and keeping that from being worse. But now it's Team Rival starting up the Fire Giant, already have it down to about 50% health. The Papis, though, do have 4 members here, but Warchi is 15 seconds from respawning, so it'll be on MrNazer to contest, and he is charging up that ultimate. Wlfy puts in his first, and it actually does go the way of the Papis. They steal it away, but Kalisz is up into the air and pulled in Creed.
And MrNazer just looking to peel for his team now as Draco dropping the Cataclysm, looking to escape, but Deathwalker pulling him back in with the taunt off of the air along, Vote wiping out Creed.
They do take the objective, but they do not take the team fight. It goes 2-for-0 in favor of Team Rival as Creed and Dracomarino are forced to wait out minute-long respawn timers plus in the base. Wlfy defending that Fire Giant wave while the rest of Team Rival continues to push down middle lane. That team fight went handily in favor of Team Rival.
But it ended up being in favor of the Papis unless Rival are able to secure this mid lane Phoenix because of the fact that Rival's left side Phoenix, when they were trying to secure that Fire Giant, actually fell to fire creeps. That's why we see Wlfy still over there trying to push that one out. I can imagine that that'll be Rival's next target to clear out the towers over there. And since the final judgment was off the mark from MrNazer, beautiful jump by Vote, getting out of the way.
But the people the Papis are missing are their front line. They don't have Creed or Dracomarino, so there's no way, despite all the damage in the world for Nazer and Warchi, that they're able to contest the objective. So Team Rival take down the Phoenix essentially for free, as well as Wlfy's able to just push up that left-hand side. So now they don't even have to worry about those fire minions spawning on that dual lane side, and they've got a Phoenix down in the mid as well. Dheylo and MrNazer do have the Fire Giant buff, but I mean, you'd rather have that on Warchi.
I'd rather probably have that on Warchi, but Dheylo can still deal a decent bit of damage by himself on the Susano, especially since he opted for such a pen-heavy build. He's got that hi-rez just to give him another stack of power whenever he's looking for those auto attacks after his abilities. And even though Wlfy was able to push out that left-hand side from the fire creeps, it's only temporary. It's only a crutch for now because the Papis are going to be able to return that fire. And the Papis also are still a little bit more in favor simply because Rival's Titan actually got poked out a decent bit from the fire minions that were in the base.
It did get poked down. Good point. That Titan is down to pretty close to about 60% HP, which could be very important for the Papis. If they win a team fight handily, their job's even easier when they go through that base. They even have a path in since that left side Phoenix has already been taken. And they are the aggressors here. They take the Portal Demon, and now they're the ones pushing down this mid lane wave here. 46 minutes into the game. Everyone's full build, everyone's level 20. The gold differences that we saw earlier in the game are now pretty much irrelevant as far as maybe like items like potions and just vision control are concerned, as they do have their mini wave here in the base and Papis are looking to push. MrNazer takes a lot of poke there from Raijin. That's what Raijin does.
And that is something that Wlfy is going to be very keen for, trying to get as much pressure out onto MrNazer as he can. If he can get that target low enough for Wlfy to iceicebaby, to full commit onto MrNazer, then this could be a very tough spot for the Papis to be in. It's all going to come down to whether or not MrNazer and Warchi can survive the assault by Rival.
MrNazer is going to be the man of this fight. His impact for the Papis has been huge so far. Still has not died this game. He's 7-0-11 at this point in 43,000 player damage. We saw his ultimate earlier remove Wlfy from the map, from the game, it kind of felt like at that point, just instantly sent back to base as they get some poke off onto Collis to try and set up here for this final push. And even Creed over in the left hand now, he's the one doing that push for him on the duo lane side of the map, trying to help get those fire minions in to split the attention of Rival.
He's got to be careful though, because Wlfy, being a Raijin late game at that, is dealing a solid amount of damage. Having those fire creeps pushed up all the way though will go slightly in favor of the Papis. But it doesn't seem as though they want to take their chances with aggressing onto this mid lane Phoenix. Better off just waiting for that Fire Giant respawn, meaning that their Phoenix should also be coming up right after. And for the Papis to keep that in mind, they don't want to lose their Phoenix in the same manner that Rival did, and Rival immediately looking to push out the remaining fire creeps from that left-hand side.
They do also take the gold fair here just to get the objective, you know, get a little more gold, buy some more wards, some more vision to make this push a little bit easier for them. But can you blame the Papis for wanting to play this one a little bit slow, a little bit safe? Team Rival's done a great job so far defending the base.
And that's kind of one of the things about Rival's composition. You can't ever count out a team that has Kali, especially not when the game is approaching the 50-minute mark. We're at practically 49 minutes, and when games go this late, it can almost be a toss-up. It just relies entirely on whether or not the Papis can CC chain iceicebaby long enough if he looks to commit for a kill onto Warchi or MrNazer.
And speaking specifically to that, iceicebaby picks up the Magai's Blessing. That way, when he goes into the back line, like MrNazer's stun, say maybe, or the knockup from Dracomarino, won't be enough to peel him off whatever target he's trying to take down with that hastened katana. So iceicebaby much more likely to have a big impact if he can avoid that first crowd control, get the reset off onto his target, or even just take out a big target like MrNazer.
He even picked up the Poison Star. Just in case his initial blink in isn't good enough, he has that Poison Star as well, not just for that potential crit burst, but the slow is the more important part, which leads me to believe that he could really commit to almost any member of the Papis and look to take them out with his build.
Taking just a couple shots there from the Fire Giant is Team Rival, looking to get positioning control over this objective, because as you said, when we're 50 minutes into the game like we are now, any fight is the one that you can win, especially when a Phoenix has already been taken down for either team. They're already weakened as Deathwalker has the Fire Giant down to 50% HP. They're going to force the Papis to respond. He keeps it leashed here just in case Papis aren't able to respond. Fire Giant, though, now is getting pushed back up. Deathwalker has to give it up. Papis are playing this so patiently.
And Vote is just doing what every Hui player loves to do, just spamming those ricochets, looking to find a double, triple bounce onto anyone. Doesn't matter if it's a tank or one of the squishies, as long as he can find somebody and connect to. But it seems as though the Papis are pretty aware of this, just standing out of range of that one. MrNazer, of course, trying to use his range to his advantage as well.
It's not just that he's been trying to get off that damage, but he had it perfectly lined up to help contest the Fire Giant too. So when he gets low, that ricochet could even be used to, if it's crazy in there, to try and help throw one more hat in the ring and contest that objective if it's kind of up in the air. Vote MBK doing what he can. Again, has it lined up. If anyone walks that area, going to be able to do tons of damage to them. iceicebaby, though, taking the back here. Again, no vision control for Papis to be able to recognize it, but if they do start it up, they do have the temporary man advantage in 5v4.
Rival won't commit to this Fire Giant unless MrNazer's ultimate is down. That final judgment, we already saw the impact that it has against objectives. Just stole away a Fire Giant. Even with Wlfy trying to go up into the Taiko Trumps, it just doesn't make a difference. Final judgment's typically going to have that all-in burst from the get-go that can secure these objectives a little bit easier.
And this really does speak to just how strong Team Rival are, because they were down a lot earlier in the game. The Papis are very much in the driver's seat, and now they've got it to where they're essentially at a 50-50 chance to win, despite being down earlier in the game. Deathwalker does start up the Portal Demon here. MrNazer put some damage over the top of it, but Creed says now it's time to go. Both ultimates committed from Dracomarino and Creed, and not too much come from it. Callus has multiple members pull with the chain, and they land into the Suns from Vote MBK. Able to get a bunch of damage off, but no kill so far, and Creed is still pushing forward using the hammer to try and take down Wlfy, but it's Callus who takes down Creed. Dheylo gets the trade, actually a 2-for-1, taking down Wlfy and Callus, which is huge for the Papis.
But look at iceicebaby on the backside. All this time, he was looking to aggress entirely onto MrNazer and Warchi. They were able to fend him off. Ice still has his ultimate available. Warchi trying to get away now. Last minute, forced up into the ultimate from Jing, but MrNazer again, flawless positioning, helping his Hunter escape from Ice on that backside.
And Creed having a huge impact here for the Papis, soaking up a bunch of damage and just pressing W, going forward, hitting a bunch of people with the hammer and getting all kinds of damage out. The bludgeon does more damage the more people she hits with that initial swing, and then when she slams it down, able to do more damage. So very, very well played there by Creed in that team fight to try and set up the 4v3, even though Team Rival were trying to see if they can catch Papis sleeping.
Rival are going to get away with that one. The Papis were not keen to leave in that Fire Giant left unattended much longer. And with the 4v3 advantage, Papis are starting up this Fire Giant. Keep in mind, though, Ice does still have his ultimate available, but so do 3 members out of the 4 left standing from the Papis.
And also, the Team Rival does not have Wlfy here. Their best way to try and contest the objective when it gets low. MrNazer still capable of essentially executing it with his final judgment once he gets it low if he times it perfectly. They're keeping it right around half health and forcing Team Rival to initiate, and Dracomarino is the one that goes in onto Vote. He blinks in, knocks him up, and forces out the Aegis early. His team not able to fall back in because Ice is on the back line trying to take out Dheylo. His ultimate's forced out and he escapes, but it's Vote who stuck around and ends up getting taken out.
MrNazer again with the final judgment. Any hopes that Vote might have had of escaping over that speed buff wall just erased. MrNazer has been all over the place with these final judgments, and every single one has seemed to find a home for the most part.
Now Vote sitting on top of a 65-second timer. I believe it was 73 or so when it started. So he's out of this for a full minute. And that's a huge source of damage for Team Rival. Actually, the damage leader for their team right now at 37,000. So without that DPS, it'll be much, much harder for them to contest this Fire Giant. And they do back off now as the Papis look to take this uncontested. Don't want to say free. They definitely earned it with that team fight.
I don't think it was necessarily the loss of Vote that deterred Rival from looking to contest this Fire Giant as much as it was iceicebaby not having his ultimate available because his get out of jail free card has just been expended. And when you don't have that active or that ability in your kit any longer, that just means that the Papis don't have to worry about you being able to find those opening avenues that he could typically be looking for.
And that's what Susano is doing so well for the Papis, being piloted by Dheylo. When Ice goes in and Creed and Dracomarino are on the back line, then Dheylo is actually able to do some peel to keep iceicebaby off as they push in on this right side Phoenix.
And again, take a look at what Dheylo was doing, coming up last for the Papis to this right-hand Phoenix, just trying to hover around this middle section in between the mid and right-hand Phoenixes, wanting to keep Ice away from his backline.
Vote now has respawned, but Fire Giant on all 5 members for the Papis. So it's certainly going to be in their favor as far as the poke war is concerned. That regen's so potent at being able to heal back up, just back and waiting for your next minion wave, and then pushing in. Dracomarino goes in with the Cataclysm, and it's Deathwalker who's in the backline. Callus, though, does commit his ultimate and pulls in several members, as well as we hear the ultimate out of Creed. Volta was forced out early, and iceicebaby tried to go into the backline, immediately gets blown up. So all ultimates expended in the side of Team Rival, but Warchi is still sitting on his ult, so he has that available in this next engagement.
But Warchi really going to be the leading factor here. MrNazer was just committed to so heavily by iceicebaby, but fortunately enough, his team was paying attention. All eyes immediately set to Ice. Everybody started to collapse onto this Kali, not giving him any opportunities to secure the kill onto MrNazer. That just came up so clutch for the Papis.
The backline of the Papis, not just in the damage they're putting up, but in their survivability, have been huge for them. Not letting Ice go back there and just run through the team fight is what's forcing Team Rival to have to back off. When Ice comes back out, no ultimate available, Mad Guy's Blessing popped, low health, Papis have the advantage after that. And Warchi and Dracomarino are looking to try and catch iceicebaby out. He doesn't have the Mad Guys. Again, he does not have that ultimate. Immediately pulled back in. Callus goes in to try and save him, but Warchi ends up getting the credit. Dheylo commits his ultimate as well, and that helps Warchi clean up Callus. Now it's 5v3, still with the Fire Giant for another minute and a half. Papis in the control.
Recognizing that this left-hand Phoenix is the weaker Phoenix, Papis not taking any chances, looking to secure this one back up. Their creep wave is a little ways off thanks to that push out by iceicebaby, which is the main reason why he even got caught out. He was looking to push that left-hand side as far as possible.
Still, though, respecting the defense of Wlfy, Vote, and Deathwalker are the Papis. They instead decide to come over for that middle lane. Phoenix, Creed goes over to try and give Warchi a lot of trouble, and they do. Dheylo ends up getting the credit for that kill. Now it's 5v2, still with 40 seconds on iceicebaby to come back and have an impact on this fight. Mid lane, Phoenix falls. It's Vote that gets stunned by MrNazer before he can get into the air. It's 5v1 now, and the Papis take down the Titan.
Papis just beat Rival. Granted, there's still one more game to go, but the Papis just beat Rival, and anything is possible in Europe. I just gotta say, huge shout-outs to the Papis for that gameplay, but more and particularly MrNazer. His gameplay was pretty much flawless today, and I think his scoreline spoke for himself.
MrNazer played well, yes, but it was the patience that we saw from the Papis that was so impressive. It was veteran-level patience that they were putting on. It was, we're going to wait for our chance to get this engagement and not give anything up. They knew how important this win over Rival would be.
It was just phenomenal, the way that they looked to secure not only the kills, but the objectives. Yeah. They lost a little bit early on, and granted, it was Rival who started things off with a bang in that match, where they had all of the control in the world at the start of that fight. It was really just the Papis making the comeback in that early game stage, and this, to me, was the determining factor where Wlfy was a problem, because Wlfy just completely shuts down Warchi, but then immediately the Papis turn it around.
Yeah, the Papis do an excellent job in this team fight, turning it around. And again, it seemed like it starts off so in favor of Rival, but it's Creed able to do so much work for him in the front line. MrNazer positioning well, as you said, and staying alive so he can get the final judgment that rips through the team fight just like this, helping to bring Deathwalker so low. Again, strong positioning for MrNazer.
He was just all the way back on numerous occasions, and it never really gave iceicebaby enough of an opening to fully commit to him. You had Draco where he would go for the initiation, but then immediately after dropping that Cataclysm, turning around, looking for Nazer, looking for Warchi, trying to ensure that his carries were still alive.
And iceicebaby started off 4-0-0 in that game too. Let's not forget on the late game Kali. So just very important from Papis to be able to stay, put on the brakes, and stay in that game.